All right, guys, so I'm going to do the demo for the Breakout game. I'm going to try to cover the whole game so that you guys have a visual example in case you were gone the day that I did it. Okay, so the first thing is you need to log into Construct 3. Make sure in the upper right, if it says guest that you log in, you should see your name and it should not say free edition up here. So you're going to start by clicking new project. You're going to give it a name, so I'm going to call it Breakout. Okay, and then you're going to pick the size of your game. We're going to do 704 by 480. So 704, 480, which was already in there. Okay, and then the rest of that you can leave as we need to, and we can click create. And then this is going to be your basic game layout here. Okay, and so what we're going to do to start off is we're going to change some properties of the game, label some things, and then start getting our objects inserted. So the main thing is since this is going to be your first time using Construct, I'll just explain some of the layout a little bit. So on the right side here, this is your project window. So this is going to show every part of your game. So the main thing here is your layouts. Okay, the layouts are like your levels, your start screens, your instructions, like all those different things. The event sheet is where you actually like type in the code and like talk to the computer. So the layout and event sheet are going to be the two main places you go. And your games are going to have multiple layouts and multiple event sheets. So we'll be adding those as we go. This object type folder is going to fill up. These are all the objects that you add to your game. So that could be like characters in your game. It could be text objects, could be buttons, pretty much any objects that we interact with and use. There's also sound and music folders that we'll use later on, not for this game, but when we add sound, that's where those will go as well. So that's your project window. So if I ever say project window, that's what I'm talking about up here. Down here in the lower right, we have a layers window. And this is important so that we can see all the different layers of our project. And the layers are just like separate pieces of glass that lay on top of each other, and we can put different, it's a way to organize like which objects are in front or behind other objects. And it's also useful when we're dealing with something called parallax that we'll talk about in a later game. Okay. You'll also notice a tab down here called tile map. We're not going to be using tile maps as a part of the required content, but tile maps are very useful. So I'll talk about those later when we probably get to final project. I'll probably do a demo on tile maps later on. Okay. On the left side, we have the properties window. The properties window you're going to use a ton. Basically, any object that you click on will have properties. And so if we need to edit properties on that object, we're going to come over here to do that. And what you'll notice is anytime you click on something new, so let's say I click on layout 1, you'll see that the properties have changed. Okay, if I were to click on an individual project, the properties will change. So the window is always going to show what you're highlighting. So if you want to change the properties for something, you have to be on that thing that you want to edit. Okay, so we're going to start by changing some properties right now. So if I click on Breakout up here, this top folder, this is my actual game project. So any overall settings I want to change in my game are going to be in the properties window over here. Okay, and so the only thing here is we just want to make sure that that viewport size is correct. Okay, and so what happens is when we're changing this viewport size, that's like our window size. So in this main breakout that we're editing, when we change the size, this is the size of the window that the player sees. So when they're playing, this is how big the actual game window is. We also have what is called a layout size. So if I click on my layout 1 here, this will also have its size. Now the layout size can be much larger than the viewport or window size if we want it to be, and then we would have to incorporate scrolling or something like that. But for this game, it's going to be the same. So in my layout 1, we want to change that size to 704 by 480. Okay, 704, 480. Okay, and for those of you that don't know what the size means, this is the size in pixels, and I just press enter when I was done there. You can see, you could also, so you could type it in up here with commas, or you can hit this arrow and you can change it by width and height here. But this is the size in pixels. So a pixel is basically a square dot on the screen. So basically anything you see on a computer is made up of pixels. They're all a bunch of little square dots kind of next to each other. So basically this is saying it's 704 dots wide by 480 dots tall. Okay. And I think for that, that should be all we need to do there. Now we do want to start labeling things as well. So my layout one, we're going to label that. So I'm just going to right click it and do rename. And this is just going to be my game layout. So I'm going to call it game. And then my event sheet, we're going to rename that also. Okay. And I like to call this one ES game, and that stands for event sheet game. Now, in the actual instructions, they might label these slightly different. So you can label it this way or how it is in the instructions. For me, the important part is just that you label it in a way that makes sense to you, and it's for understanding the code, or and helps to make everything more readable. So being organized is very important. So part of how I grade the projects is I look for that everything is labeled and organized. So when we get to event sheets, they need to be organized. When I see your list of objects here, everything needs to be labeled. And so a lot of what we are going to be making is sprites, and the default name will be like sprite one. And if you make another one, it's called sprite two. I don't want to see sprite one, sprite two, sprite three. I want them all labeled as what the object as actually is. It makes it so much easier for programming and all of that. Okay. So now what we should do is we should probably get a save in just to make sure. So we do have a menu over here. Okay, and this menu does have some options that we'll use. Mainly, we have this project where we can save, and then we have this view window where we can do some viewing things. So we'll use that probably a little bit later on. But for now, to make it easy for saving, there's actually just a little save button here. So you're going to click that save button. And what it's going to do is the first time that you save, it's going to want to know if you want what kind of save you want to do. You want to pick cloud save. Now mine didn't come up because I think I've saved stuff before, but you want to do cloud save. It's going to ask you to sign in with Google. You're going to say that it's going to ask you for a type. So you want to do cloud save, and then you want Google Drive as your type. And then you want to pick your school email. Okay, so pick your school email account. And the way this works, it's really slick, is then your game will be labeled here. So mine's called Breakout.c3p. So it's a construct 3 project. So the .c3p is that main file. So when you turn in games at the end, this is going to be saved in your drive. And then when you go into Google Classroom, you just attach this C3P file. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. The name's there. Just click save. It's going to go right into my drive. So now this game is saved and we're good to go. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add our first object to the game. So to add an object, all you have to do is just on the layout, you can right click and do insert new object, or if there's nothing here or you're just in this gray area, you can double click and you can add an object. So to insert an object, you're going to see all kinds of object types here. Okay. And what we want is we just want a sprite to start. So I'm going to make a sprite. And right here, you can name it right away. Now, if you accidentally click insert and it's just called a sprite, we can rename it through the properties window. So it's doesn't matter if you accidentally forget to name it. So I'm going to call it ball. And this is going to be a ball that bounces around in our breakout game. So I'm going to click insert. You'll get this plus cursor. And what you do with this plus cursor is you just click on the screen. And you're going to get an image editor. Okay, so this is where now we have to either draw or upload the sprite for our ball. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set the size of our ball. So there's a resize button right here. So I'm going to click that, and we're going to set it to 25 by 25 pixels. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to get my new ball here. And we can click right here. We have some magnifying lenses where we can zoom in so I can actually see where my ball goes here. And then a ball is pretty easy. It's just a circle. So there is a circle tool, but because ours is so small, we can actually just take a paintbrush and we can set the brush size to 25, which is actually the size that we want. And then on the left here, we get a color palette. We can pick whatever color we want our ball to be. And then if I just hover here, you'll see I've just got a circle because it's just, and I can click once in the center and there we go. I've got a ball, pretty basic. Now, obviously, if you're more savvy, you could draw a much nicer ball, but for this, we just want to get it in there so that we can do it, okay? So I'm going to stop here for the first part. This will be part 1. There's going to be quite a few more parts to it, but I'm going to save this just as the first part, okay? So if you want to keep going, go ahead and click on part 2.